Hey, Bestie.
Hey guys, got two Bestie homeschooling mamas coming at you. I'm Gail.
And I'm Christina.
And we have a important episode for you today that I think a lot of us women face. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about capacity and comparison. Mm-hmm. Take it off for us, Chris.
All right. So today we're going to explore how we each have unique strengths, limitations, and levels of energy shaped by personal experiences, responsibilities, and physical and emotional capacities. When we compare our efforts and accomplishments with others, it often brings frustration rather than inspiration. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And I think the hardest part right now in our world is social media.
Absolutely.
For comparison, like I stopped looking at it daily and I only am on it when I post or when I need to like find something specific.
Such a good.
But I just can't.
Yeah.
I just can't. And I need to do it more for our podcast to, give you guys tips and tricks and stuff, but I'm not mentally in that space yet. And that's part of my capacity at the moment.
Absolutely. And that's okay, because if it is taking away from your joy and your
my ability to do other things, and like the overwhelm and the shutdown that happens with it sometimes stops me from all the things, right?
Absolutely. So I feel like this could be a whole nother episode on
social media for sure.
Yeah, might put that one on the list later,
right? So we're going to talk first about like what does capacity mean? What does comparison mean? What are you talking about? Give me a definition. Okay, I will. Capacity generally refers to the maximum amount something can contain or the ability to perform, produce, or withstand. In different contexts, it can mean physical or spiritual capacity, like the maximum volume or number that an object or space can hold, like, capacity in a room or a container. Mental or emotional capacity, a person's ability to handle or process mental and emotional demands or responsibilities. Oh, I know we all just felt that one.
Right. I think that is the one I struggle with the most.
Yeah.
By far.
And then skill or capability, the extent of a person's ability to perform a certain task, skill, or role, often influenced by experience, training, and resources. Mm-hmm. So those are all examples of capacity.
Mm-hmm. So then let's talk about what comparison means. Comparison is the act of examining two or more items to note their similarities and their differences. It involves evaluating qualities, attributes, or performance to understand relative standing, often to determine value, rank, or sustainability. So in this context of personal or social dynamics, comparison often implies assessing oneself against others, which can sometimes lead to feelings of inadequacy or even envy if perceived differences are unfavorable. In a more neutral or positive sense, comparison can also inspire growth, helping people set goals and learn from others. However, I think that last piece where we do the comparison and we pull away the positives is a lot less frequent, especially with
common.
Yeah, especially with us ladies. Like, I see all the great things in all of these friends, and I'm like, why can't I do that? Why can't I be a better mom? Why can't I be a better wife? Why can't I have this or have that?
Why can't I be in better shape? That's one that comes to me a lot, like in my brain, and I have to shut that down.
Yeah,
like a lot.
Yeah, and it leads us to think that we are failures.
Yeah,
and that is not who God created us to be. He doesn't make mistakes. He didn't create us to fail,
although we did in the garden, thanks Eve.
Yeah, well, there's that. But he didn't create us to fail.
He came back to save us from all of those things. Yeah. Right? So the failure is not the thing we need to focus on. What we need to focus on is Jesus, and he will give us all our strength.
Absolutely.
I think it's misunderstood in that Bible verse that says, I can do all things through him who strengthens me, but like you think it's sometimes physical strength.
Oh.
And it's not. It's not always physical strength. And sometimes I think we misunderstand what that strength looks like, and we're not able to connect to it.
Sure.
And so then we think he's not actually giving us strength because it's not the strength we expect. And I think we have to be open-minded to different types of strength, just like different types of capacity.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important that we process through that one, because people think it's like, he's going to give me strength to get through this. And whether that be you fighting, a cancer, or you trying to parent your kids or whatever, sometimes it's just the strength to make it through the day.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your kids alive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about why capacity is unique. Each of us has a different load-bearing capacity. So your capacity is going to be unique based on your personality, based on the season of life that you're in, your family dynamics, your health, your mental health, and personal challenges. Yeah. I'm sure there's more, but those were the ones that
came to mind.
Mm-hmm. All of these things are going to affect the capacity that you have. Keep that in mind as your seasons change and things change in life. What you have is going to change, that capacity that you have.
So I thought that, this past beginning of the school year, we were asked to be in leadership for our homeschool board. And my husband didn't feel it was the right time. He felt like I was committing to too much things. And then I had a health issue that came about in the last 2 months. And had he not had that discernment for my capacity, for me, right? Had he not had that, and then I had the things that had gone on that really, they drained me. It was all that I had in me to keep my son and I alive for the day, while my husband was gone to work. And had he not known my capacity and was able to communicate that with me, we could have been drowning the last 2 months, quite honestly. And I don't, obviously God knows ahead of everything. So I don't know if he shared that with him and not with me, that we were going to need this to not be such a busy season. We're busy enough as it is, but I think that was hard for me to hear initially, because I was like, no, I want to do this, and then to be in the season I am now, where I'm just, finally moving through a lot of the health issues we had the last 2 months. It felt good to not have to let people down, because I wasn't as busy as I might have been. So that was kind of nice. Yeah. For him to know my capacity.
Absolutely.
And honestly, to have had God's discernment in my capacity for the upcoming season.
And honestly, if anyone is going to know what your capacity is more than anybody else, it's going to be your spouse. Right. So sometimes we don't want to hear what they have to say, but that's the person to listen to.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
I know for us, we have had seasons of life that were crazy busy, especially when we'd have a new baby. And it was like, I don't have as much in me as I did 9 months ago. Right. So we had to kind of step back in those times and look and say, you know what, we can't.
Yeah.
We just can't do as much as we would like to do. And then times of grief, when we lost our son, that was a really hard time where I could not make it through each day. Right. So those seasons, there are seasons in your life that you just have to go, okay, I am in, this is the space that I am in right now, and I can't go outside of that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's hard for us to recognize that we have different capacities based on different seasons of life, right? Like, you're like, well, no, I've always been able to take on this much, but then something happens and you can't anymore. And you're like, I don't understand why. Like, why can't I fit this all in my capacity? Like when we were fostering that 3.5 years, I felt like my capacity was literally just these babies. And I was still working at the time, and that was really hard. And that's why eventually I stopped while we had them in our home. But I did the first year with them here, and that was hard. So I realized that my capacity changed quite a bit. But again, it's kind of like having babies. Like, they were all newborns. You don't get to date your spouse when you have brand new babies. And so your capacity changes based on your mental health from that.
Yes.
And maybe the marriage isn't exactly where you want it to be because you have no alone time or, whatever the case may be. The mental health is definitely a hard spot.
I think that one is tricky too because you don't always realize that that's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember a time where I was dealing with some family situations that I was going to, I needed to process through and I needed to confront and deal with. And so I thought I still had plenty of capacity, but my mental state was not there. And I would have times where I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get something done. And I would completely freeze. Mm-hmm. And it didn't, until that situation was over, I didn't understand that's what was going on.
Well, and it was manifesting in you physically, and you didn't realize that either.
100%.
Yeah. I remember during this time frame, and she calls me, and she's like, I can't even get out of bed right now. My blood pressure is so high. And we had to we talked on the phone that night to try and calm you down, and David tried a bunch of things, and eventually it came down and it was better. And once the situation was over, you were good. But I think it's hard for us to realize too that when we're past capacity and we're having mental health concerns, that it physically manifests in your body too.
It does. It does. I actually talked to a friend recently and she had high blood pressure also. Mm-hmm. And so I was just checking in. Hey, we have this in common. How's your blood pressure doing? And she goes, you know what? It's fabulous. It's perfect now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, tell me your secret. What did you do? And she's like, I stepped down from my leadership roles. What? That's all I had to do. Not that I'm stepping down from any leadership roles at the moment, but she was able to see, okay, these things were causing more harm in this season than they were good. And once she was able to step away from those, it changed her health.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know that makes those of us who are super servers, sad to think of having to step away from things. But again, just Landon knew it was not the time for us to step into leadership at the moment. And I was having the health issues without any of those stresses. I couldn't even imagine what would have manifested in my body with any further stress, it was, God knew though what I needed in that moment.
He always does.
Yeah, because I was experiencing something Chris had already gone through, which was weird because it was the exact same symptoms.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy. Okay, so when I had similar symptoms, I thought I was completely crazy. And I'm pretty sure my husband, even though he would never have said it, he thought I was crazy too. And so
she never told me what the symptoms were ever. We never talked about it.
Because let's just be real. I tend to not share. She
told me she didn't feel good.
Yeah, which was true. I didn't. I felt horrible. But
yeah, but she didn't tell me the specifics of her symptoms. And then when I started having the symptoms in September, I was like, this is how I feel. And she's like, oh my God, that's how I felt.
I'm like, thank you for making me realize I wasn't completely crazy.
Yeah. She's like, I'm really sorry you don't feel good, but I'm so glad I'm not crazy.
I did. I'm such a great bestie. I totally said that.
It's okay though, because same thing for me though. I would have if I had gone through something and felt totally bonkers about it, and then she went through something, it's almost like a validation that what you're experiencing is whole and true, and
versus in your mind.
Right. And even though no one else can see it, because no one could see my symptoms aside from the numbers on the machine, but it was just, I looked normal, but I felt terrible.
Yep. And everyone's different, right? So somebody else that you know and love can have the same issue, but not have experienced it in the way you did.
Right.
So when you're talking to someone and you are deciding to share how you feel and they're like, yep, nope, I didn't have that.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay.
You almost feel judged.
Maybe it is in my head. Maybe maybe I should be seeing a therapist, not a doctor, right? Well, I guess they are doctors, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a medical doctor versus a
counselor.
Yeah. So it is reassuring when you realize you're not alone in this. And I think we could compare that to lots of scenarios in our life, right?
I'm an oversharer. So, that's how I, was to her, I was like, this is how I feel. These are all of them, all the symptoms. Tell me all the things. And that's when she was like, that's exactly how I felt. Exactly. it was kind of creepy initially.
I think there were quite a few symptoms, but there was only one that you said that I'm like, oh no, I don't think I had that.
Oh, I think it's when I was nauseous. I don't think you ever had the nausea. But yeah, so it was very odd that we had such similar symptoms, years apart even, but very strange.
This is why it is important to check on your friends.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of that song. There's a song. It's a Christian song, and I'm not going to remember who sings it.
Friends are friends forever.
Oh my gosh, that just brought me back to my childhood. Okay, so it reminds me of that song by Matthew West. It's called Truth Be Told. And if you haven't heard it, go listen to it because it's awesome. But this song really has just always resonated with me because I'm not that person who shares exactly how I am, you know? And so it talks about, I say I'm fine, but I'm not. And so it just always kind of reminds me, like, check in on your people because just because they look fine doesn't mean they are fine.
And I don't know if this is a special superpower that I have as a bestie, but I can almost tell you when she's not okay.
Oh, yeah.
Almost always. Have a bestie who can do that.
It's important. And your spouse should be able to, too.
They should. However,
Not
sometimes
always.
when you guys are both in it at the same time,
That's true.
you know, they need that person outside of the two of you. It's kind of like a kid not listening to their mom, you know?
Yeah.
And two, if it comes from your spouse, sometimes it comes from a place of like, you think I'm not doing good enough, right? So the spouse should be able to see it, yes. But if you're both struggling, and sometimes that is typical when someone's not doing well, then they may not be able to see it. And so just having that, not saying somebody who's inside your marriage, but like somebody who can, you know, call you out in love and be like, I can see things are not okay and how can I help? Yeah. You know, or how can I pray for you? Or what can we do to help you feel better? But yeah, with her, I can definitely see it on her face.
even when I don't know something's wrong, you know,
but then we always find it.
We do. There's been times where she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing. I think I'm okay. What do you mean what's wrong? And then I'll keep talking and then out comes
wrong.
That's what's bothering me, you know? So, yeah.
So, know your peeps.
Know your peeps for sure.
All right. So now we talked about capacity and why it's unique and all the scenarios for us that, you know, changed our capacity. But now we're going to talk about comparison as a barrier, because comparison is different than capacity. We talked about those definitions, but they do come in hand a lot of times. And so comparison adds pressure. It can lead to guilt or resentment, especially if you're on social media and you're not doing all the things that the other mommies do. That comparison, we've said it, I can't tell you how many times, comparison is the thief of joy. And that's exactly the next point, is that it limits the joy in your journey. Absolutely. And so Galatians 6:4-5, this is the NIV version, says each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone, without comparing themselves to someone else, for each one should carry their own load. This verse reinforces the idea that we should focus on what we are capable of handling rather than comparing our journey to others.
I think it's important to note here that it is easy. It's easy to compare ourselves to others, right? But it's also easy to project our capacity onto somebody else and have expectations that just because you can handle
XYZ
this load, that they should be able to.
Right.
And we've already talked about all these reasons that why we can't, seasons, right? So,
and I think too with capacity that causes comparison is that we don't know the trauma that they're living in.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who are living with so much trauma that they're just in constant fight mode. Constant.
Yep.
Fight or flight.
Yep.
So that changes their capacity drastically,
it does.
Which then causes us to compare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So just when you have that feeling of resentment towards somebody, not intentionally, but just like, why can't they handle this? Why can't I just hand this over to them and it gets done? Why can't, they handle XYZ, whether it's a friend, a coworker, a family member, whatever, a spouse, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind that they may be in a season where they just can't right then, and that's okay.
And that season might not change for them for a long time.
It might not.
So you have to be that unjudgmental person in their life that just loves them where they are. Yeah. And I needed this reminder today.
You know, I need this reminder often. It's easy to not intentionally, most of us aren't intentionally judging our friends or, you know.
And this is about a family member. I had counseling today, so I'm just reflecting on my counseling session this morning. And a lot of these words were used with the person that I'm working through my process with right now. And I was like, oh, there's the Lord, that little nudge.
I made the notes for this week. I'm just saying.
She did.
She had nothing to do with these notes.
I had no idea till she walked in tonight.
That's like when you're at church and the pastor says something, and you're like, oh, well, why is everybody else here? Because this was for me.
Specifically, yeah, for sure.
That's funny.
So, I mean, with comparison, just knowing that it is a barrier and that it is your thief of joy, that just push that aside because it's not for you. Yep. Jesus wants you to enjoy your life. Yeah. You know, and
worrying and stressing doesn't help us.
It doesn't.
Physically, mentally.
It doesn't.
Spiritually.
Well, and a lot of times too, the people we're comparing to are the highlight reel.
Seriously.
Like, I think we need to keep that in mind.
Yes.
Like, what we're seeing is their highlight reel of their life. And you have no idea what their relationships look like with those people who are behind the camera or how their mental health is. I mean, unless you're legit friends with them, like, you don't know what they're carrying.
Well, okay, and even if you are really close friends with you, you still don't always know. Because like, there are some things
we don't share.
We don't share. Some stresses and struggles and whatever it may be.
I feel like a lot of us moms, though, compare to, like, for me, like other homeschool moms that are on, you know, Instagram or whatever. Like, there's this one mom who's like, if you want to get up at 5 and do your movement and your workout before you start homeschooling your 4 kids, and, you know, these are 3 important tips. And I'm like, you're the devil waking up at 5 a.m. You just are.
Yeah. I think that was big in the beginning of our homeschool journey, was that getting used to, oh, this mom is doing these things. I should be doing those things too. And getting to the place where it was, I don't have to.
It doesn't have to look like that.
People tell us all the time, don't make your school look like
public
school
school
elsewhere, right? You hear that all the time, but do we ever say, hey, don't make your homeschool look like this other homeschool mom?
Right.
Because what works for them is not going to necessarily work for you.
Right.
So that's a freebie tip right there.
Yeah. Comparison, man. It's all the things.
It is. Okay. So we've talked a lot about capacity and comparison. But let's talk a few practical tips, because it's easy to say the things and hear the things, but let's talk about what we can do to actually change the things. Yeah.
I like it.
Okay. So my first tip is read your Bible daily and spend time in prayer. This is not a strong suit of mine. It doesn't come naturally, but it's something I work at every day. And when I mess up, when I skip, I just try again the next day.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Keep at it. It doesn't matter if you're reading a Bible plan. It doesn't matter if you're reading a Bible plan with friends. It doesn't matter if you're praying out loud in your shower, or if you're praying, you know, in your closet,
driving in the car,
it doesn't matter. Just make that a priority, because that's going to help all aspects of your life, hands down.
Yeah. I mean, relationship with Jesus is the first thing that we all, I mean, that's the thing. If we start comparing ourselves to Jesus instead of the other people, then we're going to have a closer walk.
That's a good one.
Because, you know, if we're trying to compare ourselves to other sinners, we're just going to be some more sinners.
Yep.
And so we need to be modeling and comparing ourselves to Jesus. And obviously we're not perfect, because that's why he died. But, you know, the closer we compare ourselves to him and the closer we walk with him, the more joy we're going to have.
So absolutely.
That's where the Bible and the praying come in play. So the next one is recognizing and respecting your own capacity.
This one's not always easy.
Especially if you've had high capacity before and you're in a place where you're not right now. that is very, very difficult to recognize and respect it. And so, again, having a spouse or a good friend or, your small circle, not your large circle, your small circle of people who know you well, help keep you accountable with stuff like that.
Absolutely. So it's also important to set personal goals. So if you know you're struggling, if you've recognized this, don't overwhelm yourself with this huge long list. Just set obtainable goals. Make today this is what I'm going to accomplish.
Right. Make just one priority thing a day for a while until you can get through that list.
Absolutely.
And don't add anything new to it.
No.
For a while.
Yeah.
Until that goal and that capacity feels comfortable again.
Yeah. And know that it's usually a season. If you are used to being a high capacity person, these seasons usually come and go, right? So don't think this is your new normal.
No.
Don't set that expectation. Just get through that season.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're shorter, sometimes they're longer.
Right.
But just get through that season.
Yeah, but being able, again, to recognize that you're in that season is super important.
Absolutely.
Because you can't set those personal goals on a high capacity when you're at a low capacity. Yeah. Focusing on gratitude. Oh, this is absolutely my favorite thing right now. I've been doing a lot of gratitude in my phone, on my phone journal, but I also have a gratitude journal that I wrote that's on Amazon, and I will put that on the show notes for you guys, the link to that. It's like a 5-minute little gratitude journal thing. It's like 250 pages or something, and it's mostly just blanks, and you write in the things. It just asks a couple questions, but gratitude is for sure. If you're ever in a place where you're angry or you're frustrated with your life or your capacity, just start listing the things you're grateful for. It's kind of like in White Christmas. Count your blessings. We just watched Home Alone today.
Nice. That's a good one.
Yes. So I'm all in the Christmas mode at the moment. But yeah, focusing on your blessings and the gratitude in your life.
Absolutely. And I think that one is super important to do with your kids and have your kids see you doing as well.
I've been trying to do that with Corey each day, and he really struggles to identify, because I'll say while we're having dinner or whatever, what's something that you're thankful for today? Or it's also in his history book when we do that. They have tell us something you're thankful for. And so that's once a week with that book. But yeah, he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, what's something that if you hadn't done this week, you wouldn't have missed it, but something that you were really excited that you did this week, or that somebody you saw, or, for mommy or daddy or whatever. And so I've just been talking through it with him because he just doesn't seem to understand the concept. But I think if we talk through that now, then maybe he'll understand it.
Absolutely. You could even start pointing them out to him. Like when you see that he's really enjoying something or having a great time. Oh, buddy, are you really thankful for this thing that's happening right now?
We've been struggling though, when we point things out to him, or oh, you're so cute, dude. You're such a cute man, cute little guy. And he's like, I'm not cute. And then he starts to self-negative talk on himself. And I'm like, you're so young for that. Right? You're so young to have negative talk on yourself. And I don't understand where that comes from, because Landon and I don't speak to him that way. And it's very strange. So he struggles to see the thankfulness and the gratitude and things. And then if you tell him he's cute, he's like, no, I'm ugly. And I'm like, bud, that's not true. God made you very special. You're very handsome. And, we always negate it. But I don't know if that's coming from a place of trauma for him, that he just has that feeling inside of him, and we're going to need to work through that some more. But it's very, very interesting at such a young age that he's not able to,
get there,
grasp those things. He's 8, so you'd think we realized today when we were watching Home Alone that Kevin was 8 in that movie. And I look at Kevin and I'm like, that's not an 8-year-old. I look at my son and I was like, that's not an 8-year-old. But he is small like an 8-year-old, and that's how old he plays in the movie. But I was like, wow. Kind of a little comparison there, between Kevin McAllister and my child, who are both 8. But I was like, if my son ever got left alone somewhere, which has never happened, I don't think he'd function fighting back the bad guys. I think he'd roll up in a ball and start
grocery
screaming.
shopping.
Yeah. So it's just very, very strange. But it just, that great gratitude thing and is something I think we're going to have to work really hard on with him.
Yeah. You'll get there. He'll get there.
But yes, sure. I think that starting it young is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Showing your kids their value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. So then the last thing that we wanted to mention was celebrating the small victories, because, sometimes those victories are all we have.
Right.
So celebrate them instead of focusing on what should be or could be or isn't.
The what ifs.
Yeah. Celebrate those small victories. Hey, you know what? I got these 2 things today. Hey, I got up and I got dressed and I went out of the house today.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, celebrate those victories for sure.
I like it.
Yeah. Okay. So as we wrap up, remember that your journey is uniquely yours, shaped by the strengths, challenges, and capacity that God has given you. Embrace where you are, trusting that God has equipped you for your path, not somebody else's. I'm going to say that one again. Embrace where you are, trusting that God has equipped you for your path, not somebody else's. When we let go of comparison, we create space for gratitude and growth, allowing ourselves to truly appreciate the process God is leading us through. So keep moving forward at your pace, confident in the knowledge that God has given you everything you need to thrive on the path He has set before you.
Well, before Miss Christina prays us out, make sure to like, subscribe, share, write a review, do all the things. You know what to do. If it's been a minute since you have sent a review, go ahead and do that for us. And we hope you guys are enjoying the new episodes. We are working on 2025's schedule right now, so we're very excited about that. We're just excited for the next step.
Yeah.
All right, Miss Christina's going to pray us out.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all that you've given us. Thank you for giving us the capacity that we have. Thank you for the seasons where we have lots of it, and just walk us through the seasons where we don't have a lot. Help us to be there for others and to lift each other up and not to compare when we're struggling. Pray this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Hey, Bestie.